Very good. Let's see here. Participants, did we just open the door to get people in? And let's monitor participants. And as people come in, I'm going to invite them to put in the city. So we know, David Green, welcome to the webinar. We just opened the doors. Expect to have a nice sized group here so we can interact. And as you come in, if you put the city that you're located in into the chat box, it'll help Steve and Rob and myself know kind of the audience, and we can speak more about your interests and what might help you even more. So let me see, pull up the chat box now, and we're gonna have a nice sized group today. So this is definitely a good time to interact with us as you have questions about your business, that kind of stuff, because the privacy requirements are here. They're changing, and they're going to become, I'm not sure, Steve and Rob will tell us whether we think we're going to do something like the EU, but we definitely know some states are more ambitious than others. So welcome to the event. So if you could put in the chat box as you come in, the city that you're in, that'll help us direct the conversation to you guys. I see Cynthia's here, got Donald, Levin. We're gonna have a nice sized group today, so we're gonna be able to do as much interaction as you want, so you get what you need from this learning experience. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it open for just a minute more. And we're gonna launch. Yeah, Karen, Mike, you can almost get to know each of you by name, which is fantastic. Okay, Steve, are you ready to launch? Yep. Hey, you're on mute right now.
I'm ready.
We're ready on our side for sure.
Great. So I got Steve and Rob here, but first things first, my name is Kirk. I'm the CEO of Foresight CFO. In addition to doing, helping CEOs with growth CFO and accounting services, I teach financial management at Georgetown to grad students. So part of the mission, how do we use the numbers to make better decisions? And in doing that, I actually met the owner of CSR years ago, and we actually did some work together. And I met Rob and Steve more recently, and I'm really excited about their solution because we want to focus on growing the business. So we've got to make sure that on the compliance side, it's easy and it's effective. And I've been kind of walking side by side with them for quite a while as they came about the solution that we're going to talk about today within the context of these changing laws that are mandating better requirements. So let's go to Rob first. Rob, can you introduce yourself, and then Steve, since Steve's going to carry the weight for the lecture. Can you tell us something about yourself, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kurt. Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending where everybody is, Eastern Coast or West Coast. My name is Rob Smith, and I'm the VP of Product and Operations here at CSR Privacy Solutions. And before I really turn it over to Steve, as he addresses how to reduce your data breach exposure, I want everybody in the room here to think about really two major things, because it'll really help put some thought to what Steve is going to talk about. The first is, from a business perspective, where are your customers or clients from? And how many states and or countries do you think that actually composes? So I think that's kind of interesting. We've done some research. Our average client is doing business in over 29 states, just to give you some idea. And that's going to bring some weight to some of the points that Steve's going to talk about. So if you can kind of think about your business and where your clients and customers from before we get there, I think that'd be very helpful. Second, I think one of the biggest things that we address is if you did have or you suspected a data breach within your business, who do you think you would call? A very interesting fact of all the people we've been working with, 90% of the time, they believe they're calling the right person to address and solve a problem, and they're not correct. So I definitely, if you guys do have a plan in place to test and confirm that they are the right people to talk to, and see if they are actually qualified to handle a data breach or a security incident. So those are the two main things I'd like you to kind of take away before Steve introduces himself and go from there. But appreciate the opportunity, Kurt, and everybody for your time today on the webinar.
Great, thank you, Rob.
Okay, I guess Good morning to some of you. Good afternoon to some of you. My name is Stephen Green. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for CSR Privacy Solutions. We're very excited to be here to present to you our solution. I started here about 5 years ago, and I've seen just a tremendous amount of transition in the world of data privacy. I've spoken to so many businesses around the country, and I can tell that a lot of people think of cybersecurity when they think of data privacy, and it's actually something completely different. And I'm hoping to explain that to you here today, so that when you walk away, you can understand the difference between data privacy or cyber privacy versus cybersecurity. But they are completely two separate things. So, sorry.
So to kick things off, because it's always about, addressing your needs, let's do a poll, kind of find out who's in the room here. We have 2 questions, and your response is completely anonymous, right? And the first question is, what was your top line revenue in the prior year? And there's a couple of brackets, so you can pick the one that matches you. And the second question, this year, I mean, it's amazing, this year's almost over. With COVID, what do you expect? Do you expect your revenue to increase, decrease, or to stay about the same? So if you could just, get people to answer those questions, that'd be a big help. Yep. There's 6 of us here, so if we get a handful of people to respond, that'd be fantastic. So far, we got one big company who responded. Somebody doing 70 million plus. So if you have a different revenue size, let us know, and that way that we can bring out examples and kind of talk through those case studies. Okay. Okay, I'm going to wrap up polling, and I'm going to share. This is one response. We're going to invite more people to the next webinar, and I'll share the response. The one response, it's completely anonymous, is big company doing 70 million plus, and they are, they expect to do about the same. It's interesting on these webinars, roughly, the type of person that comes to a webinar, a lot of times they're doing about the same or better, even though the U.S. economy, the global economy is contracting. So it's really an interesting result there. So with that, Steve, let's keep going through. Let's really get into the topic here and talk about privacy.
Okay. All right. Well, the first thing I want to discuss here is, what is a data breach? So many people out there, when they think of a data breach, they automatically think of a hacking or a phishing scheme, but really a data breach is a security incident. That's something I learned right away when I got here. It's a security incident. It could be any sort of security incident. And notice, it's an incident, right? It doesn't have to be something malicious. It could be something that's accidental. Something by mistake. We're humans at the end of the day. Human error is to blame for a lot of the data breaches that you're seeing. But it's a security incident in which personal information was lost, copied, viewed, stolen, what have you, and it could be in any form, whether it's electronic or physical. And a lot more of these breaches are physical than people realize. So what is data privacy? So this is the best way I can explain it. Cybersecurity, I want to address first. Cybersecurity is about keeping people out of your network, right? Or bad actors out of your network. You don't want them infiltrating onto your network or onto your server, and you have cybersecurity experts that do that. But nothing is guaranteed, and the truth is, you can only do so much with cybersecurity, because any IT company will tell you, I can lock down your whole system, you just won't get any work done. So cybersecurity, again, is about keeping bad actors out of your network. Data privacy is about keeping information in your business. And in a post-COVID world where so many businesses now have employees working from off-site locations, our business became a lot busier because everyone started realizing, hey, I now have data that's decentralized even more than ever. And you have to make sure that you have policies and procedures within your business to go ahead and protect the data that you as a business owner are legally responsible. And there are a tremendous amount of regulations and laws that surround data privacy. So again, cybersecurity, keeping individuals and bad actors out of your network. Data privacy, or is what we call cyber privacy, is about keeping data inside your business.
That's going to be distinction. Steve, are you seeing an increase in attempts to breach the data privacy? I mean, with COVID, more people at home and more people struggling. Is there anything going on?
Yeah, so we are definitely seeing data breaches. We've seen a steady increase through the years, but what we're starting to really see are enforcement. Not only enforcement, but also lawsuits related to the data breaches. But since COVID, it almost seems like it's nonstop breaches going on. Everyone is going to have a breach, is what I tell everyone. If you don't think you've been breached, maybe you haven't. Chances are you have. Many small and medium-sized businesses don't think that they are targeted. I have listened to numerous presentations, some from the cybersecurity experts of the FBI. That's exactly who they target, is small and medium-sized businesses, because they do not have the means to go ahead, handle a data breach, both from a legal standpoint and from a security standpoint. So we're definitely seeing a huge uptick in data breaches. And what you want to do as a business owner is you want to make sure that you mitigate your risk, right? That's what it's about. Because again, you're going to have a data breach. It's just going to happen. You could take every measure out there, but you want to go ahead, mitigate your risk. You want to go ahead and create what we call here a defensible position. You want to be proactive. You want to be able to prove or document that you have taken steps towards protecting the data that, again, you are responsible for as a business owner. Something I really want you to think about before I get to the next slide is, who would you call if you had a data breach? I always ask people that because 9 times out of 10, I'll get, well, I'll call my IT company, which is not really the right answer. The other percentage is, I don't know, right? But the truth is you'd probably end up calling a lawyer because that's where you're going to end up eventually. Sometimes it doesn't even have anything to do with your IT company. So, you know, these are some things you're going to find about through this presentation. As I said just a moment ago, we've seen a gradual increase in fines. I say that in a very sarcastic way because anyone with any level of business acumen would be able to see just from this chart alone that fines, whether it's from attorney generals or various regulatory agencies, are through the roof. Now, keep in mind, these are only fines generated from data breaches. These are not fines including data privacy laws, where there are fines, access requests, which is the new sexy thing on the block, which is access request fines. An access request is if you have a customer or a patient or a consumer and they request information on themselves to a business. In certain states and in certain industries, you're required to go ahead and fulfill those requests. We'll talk about that a little bit further. But these are just fines generated from breaches. These are not lawsuits. These are not forensics. These are not new policies, new procedures. These are not legal fees, no lawsuits. These are strictly just the fines. And as you can see, the numbers are staggering. Obviously, 2020, we've had a little bit of a pullback. We all know that's because of COVID. And something to point out here, just in 2019, the number is really actually over 5 billion in fines. I just took this out because I didn't want to skew the numbers too much, but it was actually 5.3 billion in fines. Also, just quickly to note, as of yesterday, another $39 million fine was handed out to an insurance carrier. The lawsuit was brought on by 40, I think it was about 40 different state attorney generals, but this is what they're looking for. This is an epidemic, if you will. So Lots of times I talk about data breaches. People don't really believe me that this is happening on a grand scale. So what I wanted to show you here is just a small example of some of the data breaches that are occurring. So if you are in the state of Iowa, okay, and you have a data breach that affected a resident in Iowa, you will end up on this website. So Iowa, not the most populated state within the union here, but still they have very strict data privacy laws, and they are one in 16 states that actually have public-facing breach notification letters out there. So you would actually go here, you would click on the link, it would take you to the Attorney General of Iowa, Attorney General Tom Miller. You would go pick the year, and here's a perfect example, Taco John's of Iowa. I don't know the first thing about Taco John's of Iowa. I'm sure it's a wonderful establishment. Don't know if I'm grabbing tacos in Iowa, but you know, obviously they are a business and they had a security incident. And what happened? Well, we go here and we look at this letter and it said that, hey, we represent Taco John's of Iowa and are writing to notify your office of an incident that may have affected the security of personal information related to 5,451 Iowa residents. Now, Taco John's of Iowa obviously is in Iowa, right? Something very important here to let you all know is this is just the report to the state of Iowa. If Taco John's of Iowa, if they had a breach that affected residents from other states, you may have to notify those other states' attorney generals as well, or various regulatory agencies. So this is just a small example of a data breach that affected a small or a chain business in the Midwest where they had to go and deliver a data breach notification. Moving on, here's the state of California. They too have a public-facing database of data breaches that have affected their California residences. You would go to the site, you could pick out whatever business you want. In this case, we picked a CPA because again, I wanted to show you this is happening on a grand scale to every business, small, medium, large, enterprise, it doesn't matter. You only hear about the large Home Depot or Uber breaches, but this is happening to everyday businesses up and down the street, whether it's in a strip mall or in an office building, or someone even operating an e-commerce website from their house. These data breaches are happening left and right. In this case, the AG received the data breach notification letter, and I want to pause on here because this is a great example. What happened? On December 8th, a computer hard drive containing some of our clients' information was stolen from our office. That's not an IT issue. That is a security incident. That is a physical security incident. While the hard drive was password protected, that's a policy. Hopefully they had a policy in there, which it seems they did, and it was password protected. But imagine if you had a data breach and you didn't have a policy that stated you must have it password protected, and the breach got out and the information got out, and then there was, you know, unfortunately, security risk to those individuals. You know, you may have a potential lawsuit on your hand, whether it's by class action, an individual, or by an attorney general. So it goes on to discuss what they're doing, the date of the incident, everything that is required in a breach notification letter to the attorney general. They're all very specific. And throughout the US, they're all different. So there's something around 300 reporting entities within the US alone at the federal, state, and local levels. Then you also have to meet the global requirements. The EU, we're going to discuss in here, very strict notification laws as well as data privacy laws. But this is just a small example to show how this is affecting small and medium-sized businesses. We had one breach that was called in. It was a small business, 300 customers. We ended up having to report it to 29 states and 2 different countries, obviously the US and Canada. But again, explaining the breach occurred in Florida. However, the breach affected individuals from all these states, and it met the state threshold to be reported to those attorney generals. Another example is we had a small and medium-sized business, that had about 900 customers, 42 states, 5 different countries. We provided the notification. Again, a breach occurred within the state of Florida. It affected individuals from these various states and countries, and we had to fulfill the reporting requirements for these particular states and countries.
Hey,
Yeah, did you have a question there?
yeah, just a question. So you see the customer side. What if it's a client CRM and that information is breached, and you might have contacts, nationwide quite easily. Is that data considered part of this subject that we're talking about from a CRM?
It broke up. I think you said a CRM, like a third party.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have given information that you own as a business to a third party, and that third party has a breach, you are responsible for that. We are going to discuss that a little bit further in the presentation. But good question. So types of breaches: accidental. About 92% of them are accidental. Oops, I didn't mean to send that email. That happens to everyone. I've done it myself. You accidentally send an email to the wrong destination. Unfortunately, it maybe contained a file that wasn't password protected. Happens in the school systems a lot. You can Google this if you want to look at examples. And all of a sudden you had a data breach. So the majority of them are accidental. Regardless, you need to report it. About 7% are malicious. Malicious meaning I'm just doing something to get back at someone. They have the legal right to be in that business, but they do not have the legal right to go ahead and take the information. That's about 7% of all the breaches. And then nefarious reasons. That's where your ransomware, your phishing schemes occur a lot, about 1 or 2% of the time. So the vast majority of these are accidental. Yes.
It's one of the things that's worth noting here that was a big surprise for me over the years. The things that we hear about in the news, the things like the Home Depots and the Targets and the big ones, those are all the nefarious. But as Steve has pointed out, that's only 1 to 2% of the actual breaches. From a small to medium-sized business side, we don't hear about the others. The reason we hear about the nefarious is just because they're very large businesses that get exposed one way or another. So we hear a lot more about nefarious, and that's why people have a tendency to believe that it's more of a cyber issue and my IT people are going to address it. But as you can see, it's 98% of that is stuff that the IT professional does not usually handle.
Good point. So a common question we always get is, well, what is personal information? As you can see from this slide, personal information could be any of this. The truth is, every state is different. Every industry is different for what they consider to be personal information. Also, the different combinations will determine if it needs to be reported or not. One of the biggest things going on right now are biometrics, right? Everyone wants to turn their phone on with their face or protect their computer with their fingerprint. One thing I see are car dealerships. They're now having their salespeople who do test drives, they need to give their fingerprint over. Well, guess what? When you have that information, you're responsible for it. So should you have a data breach, it could be any of this information. Zip code, perfect example, is in California, zip code is considered personal information, but in other states it is not. So that's what the craziest thing is about a data breach, and the reporting aspect is you need to look up all the various state laws and determine where you need to report it, where you don't need to report it, including various industries. But any of these examples are considered personal information, or as we say, PI. Here's an example of state regulations. So we got New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Well, as you can see, every state has different laws. And if you're a business and you hold records or personal information of individuals from all these states, you must comply with their state laws. So you may hold I'm going to give you an example here. You may hold the personal information of individuals from all 5 of these states, but you don't actually conduct a risk assessment. You're out of compliance should you have a data breach with the state of Connecticut and the state of New Jersey. Excuse me, you are out of compliance with the state of Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and New York. I apologize for that. Because they require that you have or perform a risk assessment. Request for information, well, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, right? If you have individuals from those states and a request is submitted to you and you do not fulfill it, you are at risk. So all the state regulations are different. And what we're seeing is around 2005, you had data breach notification laws. Today, and that was in California in 2005. Today, all 50 states now have data breach notification laws. And the data privacy laws are getting more strenuous, they're getting more strict, they're getting more complex, and every state is consistently trying to outdo each other, which brings us to the EU, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. So in May of 2018, the EU implemented the GDPR, which was a massive piece of legislation. And what I just want to point out here is the word must. You must do all these things if you are holding the personal information of an individual from the EU. It is part of their laws. After the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, one of the biggest changes that affected us here in the US is the CCPA. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to do a little digging in addition to what I'm going to tell you right now. The CCPA almost mimicked the GDPR with slight differences. But one of the biggest things you will see there is the individual has the right to sue a company. Something else I want to point out is reasonable security policies and procedures. This is data privacy. Reasonable security policies and procedures. So what is reasonable? I don't know. And it's difficult to gauge, right? What you want to do is implement what you hope are reasonable security policies and procedures, and you want to have it all documented. All the documentation is extremely important in everything we discuss here today. But the CCPA was another example of data privacy laws being advanced. And there's huge enforcement, as you saw before, that's already occurring from the CCPA. But again, I go back, in 2005, we had data breach notification laws in California. Today, every state has them. California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, gets passed right after the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR in the EU. Now, in addition, we also have the New York Shield Act. Again, you see the phrase reasonable security. What is reasonable? I don't know, right? It's for someone to determine. But what I do know is you need to have policies and procedures, you need to mitigate risk, and you need to have it all documented. One of the biggest things in the Shield Act that they cover are third party. What we are noticing is, and what the industry is noticing, is that data breaches occurring from third parties more often than they were in the past, or at least they're being reported a lot more. But 21% of the data breaches are caused at the vendor level. If I can quickly just give a quick scenario, my wife and I have a daughter. We brought her to a school. The school told us their policies and procedures for holding our child's information. Nefarious actors love children's information. She said nothing goes on electronic, it's all physical in drawers. I asked her, is it under lock and key? She told me no. I didn't even think twice because she said the policy is me and my executive assistant are the only ones who have access to the children's information. Until my wife came in and said, well, and your custodian. To which I even paused and looked and said, oh, I never even thought about that. But a custodian has access because it's not under lock and key. I mean, behind a lock. it's pretty reasonable to put information behind a locked door, right? Anyone can get through a locked door, but we got to think of every aspect. And again, that's a perfect example of a physical data breach, but vendor contracts are very important. If you hold information from an individual from New York, you need to have vendor contracts because you're responsible for the individual from New York for their information being kept safe, and you have to comply with the laws of New York with the new SHIELD Act. So I've sat there and I've explained a lot of the different various laws out there, the mandates, the regulations, what people are looking for. And I'm sure you're sitting there saying, well, this seems extremely complex. This must be just beyond costing me an arm and a leg, but I'm here to tell you that it's not. There are very simple, easy solutions. I'm very proud to say that we are on the forefront of data privacy and providing solutions that don't cost an arm and a leg. In fact, they are extremely cost effective and will go ahead and mitigate that risk and help you with those documentation efforts that we talked about in the first half of this presentation. So cyber privacy assessment, something I always like to explain. You own your business, okay? Very common thing that people do is send out emails, as I explained earlier, or turning over a copier, printer, fax machine. This one always makes people think. When you turn over your copier, your printer, your fax machine, maybe you lease it, maybe you've purchased it, maybe you're getting rid of it because you're getting a new one. What happens to that data inside? Who's responsible for destroying that data? Keep in mind, every printer, every fax, every copy that you've ever put through those machines, they are retained within the hard drives. A lot of people don't realize that. When that copier goes out the door, that data has now been breached, right? It's now breached from your business and it's out there. What are the policies and procedures? Who's responsible for that data? You, the business owner, are responsible for it. What does your third-party vendor do with those hard drives? Again, you're responsible for the data. So you want to go ahead and have an assessment so that you can determine, because these are certain things that people don't even think about, to assess your data privacy practices or your cyber privacy practices. And it goes with everything from your third-party vendors to machines to emails that you're sending out to a jump drive that you may just put into your device and accidentally download some information and you accidentally drop it somewhere. You need to go through an assessment because many of the states have a self-assessment requirement and determine where you have some gaps. We have assessments that you can do that are extremely cost effective. Data subject access request. This is huge right now in the world of healthcare. I know one of the businesses that answered, you have revenue in excess of 50 million. You might fall under CCPA, but data subject access requests are huge. If individuals go ahead and request information from you, the business owner, and remember, individuals could be a customer, it could be a patient, it could be a student, it could be an employee. But if they request information, what process do you have in place to fulfill that request? There were many, many fines that were handed out just last week by the Department of Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights because one nonprofit, a couple of small businesses, and a couple of larger institutions never fulfilled the request by individuals who said, hey, what information do you have on me? How are you storing it? I want the information you have on me. Tell me. They just never fulfilled the request. And fines were handed out from $3,500 to $80,000. So data subject access requests, you want to make sure that you have a process in place. You want to make sure that you're documenting those efforts. Website monitoring and port scanning. One of our new programs, something that's really important is these laws are forever changing. you want to make sure that you're looking for any vulnerabilities within your website. We have programs that will allow you to go in, look at various websites, and then it'll report to you, whether you don't have a cookie notice or you're not compliant with contact forms or pop-up markers. We go ahead, we will monitor the website for you and determine if there are security flaws or not. And again, you now have it documented where, hey, this is a risk for you. We need you to go ahead and, take care of that. Firewall vulnerability scans. This is a big thing. Everyone has ports in their network, because you have information flowing in and out. What you want to make sure is you're always looking and scanning those ports to see if you have any vulnerabilities. Again, we have solutions that go ahead, scan those ports, and then produce a report for you and lets you know where there's a vulnerability, whether it's a high risk, low risk, and if you need to go ahead and address it. Vendor risk management, one of our most exciting products, because let's be honest, somebody maintaining an Excel spreadsheet or just documenting a Word document on all the various vendors that you are supplying personal information with would probably be a job or two in itself. Most businesses don't have individuals that do this. They want to have a clear and concise way of documenting the efforts they have in vetting all of their vendors. Their vendors could be anywhere from, again, copiers to shipping to credit card. The big one is credit card. Constant breaches going on there. Your custodians, maybe your shredding providers. You hand off personal information that you're responsible for to individuals like this all the time. We have great solutions that can help you maintain and monitor and vet all of your third-party vendors. And you need to make sure that you're seeing how they handle the personal information that you're giving them, how they store it, how they destroy it, how they transmit it, who do they turn it over. You want to make sure that you have documented that. You cannot just say, oh, I didn't know when I turned over my lease agreement on the copiers, I didn't realize that they don't wipe the hard drives. So it's a very strenuous process, but we've made it very simple with some of our software that we provide in our packages. Data breach advising. I asked in the beginning, ask yourself, where do you go if you have a data breach? I said 9 out of 10 times, somebody's going to their IT department, which is the wrong place to go. And I believe most people find themselves at a privacy lawyer, anywhere from probably $400 to $500 an hour. Well, every state in the US have data breach notification laws. We have a program that allows you to come as a point of reference that we will address and let you know if, in fact, you had a data breach that met the threshold of needing to be reported, and we will even tell you where it needs to be reported. So we are sort of like a 24/7, 24-hour roadside assistance, right? If your car breaks down, you want to make sure that you have somewhere to go. So many people have, well, I'm going to go ahead and call this 24-hour roadside assistance for AAA. That's sort of like what this aspect of our program is. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. So they call us. We will tell them what steps they need to do, what procedures they need to take, because there's nothing worse than reporting a data breach that never needed to be reported in the first place. Again, every state, various industries have very specific requirements in reporting. And lots of times businesses don't meet the threshold to have them reported. Well, if you report something that didn't need to be reported, guess what? You're bringing on a bunch of attention that was never needed in the first place. So we have programs that address this aspect of data privacy for you. So I appreciate everything or the time that you've given me here today. If you'd like a quick assessment, I'd be happy to go ahead and set up a time with you. My email address is right here. That is my cell number. My phone is never off. Our packages are anywhere from $39.99 a month to $69.99 a month. We're very proud of that price. There are privacy companies out there charging an arm and a leg thousands of dollars per month. You do not need to go ahead and go with those options. They just know that it is a very new aspect into the business world. And lots of times when people don't know what to do, companies take advantage of that. Our packages are, in my opinion, the best on the market. And what's so great about ours is it's simple, because a lot of this isn't very difficult. It's just that a lot of people don't understand it and don't know it and think their IT companies are handling it. But we've made it very simple and cost effective for all businesses of all sizes. So thank you very much, and I'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, and just to add, Steve, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, we do growth CFO work, so we want to be compliant. We want something that's effective, and that's kind of like thing one. And by not having breaches to take us off track, we can really focus on growing the business. How do we grow the top line and the bottom line? And then on top of that, you get a lot of capability that you build into your technology, which makes those price points possible and effective. So that's one reason why I'm really glad that you're here getting the word out. So thanks for that. And yes, we're going to send out a copy answering Ike's question here. We're going to send out a link to download the slide deck, plus a link to the recording so that you can listen to it again if you need to do that, or if you want to share it with somebody else who you're making the case for. But this falls, from a price standpoint, no brainer, right? Get it done, get compliant, be in compliance. If you have a breach, you know who to go to. And then that allows, team members to focus on other parts of the business. So thank you so much. And hey, just to bring it home, can you click to the next slide, Steve? And I'm just going to wrap it in. This topic, this is what we're talking about. Let's make easy things easy, like privacy security, the way CSR does. And that way we can focus on using the numbers to win more customers, keep customers, access to capital, things that really keep us healthy and thriving, not just in the COVID economy, but whatever economy we're going into. Okay, next slide, Steve. Yep. So we do that through the habits of profitability, right? Good numbers, managing cash, financial roadmap, not just 12 months in the year, but all the way to what do you really want out of your business? Both household income and that valuation. And we do it in a way where you do have a transferable business. So there's 7 succession options that habits get into that. So it makes the right succession option available to you in a way that maximizes the value of your business. And the next slide shows how to, this is how to get hold of me if you want to learn how to use the 2% CEO habits of profitability. And then we'll go to the last slide, which goes back to Steve's contact. And this falls into the category of, it didn't get updated there, but let's go back. It's worth a conversation with Steve to do all that. Really, you can do all that for $40 and $70 a month. Really, have a discussion, because I know Rob well. I'm getting to know Steve. I know the CEO of the business. If they say they can do it, they can do it. So, guys, thank you. You landed the plane just right on time. That's excellent. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you so much, and reach out to Steve, have that call, and make him prove it to you that he can really do everything he says for that price point. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Talk to you soon.